What is up, everybody? It is me, Duke Farley, back at it again here on Lost at Sea, covering this latest episode of Ascendance Live. But I am joined by one of my favorite people in the Ascendance community, actually, just in the OR community. That is Scotty. No, just Scott Link. What is up, Scott? How are you?
I am so well. Always the charmer, always the sweetest to me. Thank you, Duke, for that stellar introduction. It's great to be here, though.
Yeah, glad to have you back on. Glad that you have been keeping up with the season and your draft and everything. And really excited to just talk about this season so far. We've had 4 episodes, so I wanted to ask you, Scott, who do you like? Who are you liking? Who are you like watching here?
I feel like there's a few standouts that have caught my eye. Not necessarily in any order, but Jodalee, Zoe, Thomas, and Keaton, my descendants. Those are the people that are on my team, so I have to root for them. And I did notice that in Drew's clue it said you had to descend to ascend. So it was like, that's my team. They have to descend to ascend. So maybe that's why I picked for this episode.
It's almost as if you knew.
Well, I assumed that you knew because you asked me to be here. But
valid point.
Overall, I think that a lot of my initial reactions are similar to how I'm still feeling. A couple of them have changed a bit as we've gone on. I don't know if I have a clear-cut favorite right now, but I do see a lot of gamers, a lot of shystiness, a lot of people that I wouldn't trust, but a lot of people that I would like to talk to outside of playing a game with. But also a lot of I don't know. I just wouldn't trust everyone at the cast.
Who would you not trust? Let's get into it.
Would I not trust? Gosh.
Who's giving you like snake vibes?
I don't know what giving me snake vibes. What I literally said before we started this, I don't want to say anything mean about anyone, and that's the first real question you give me. But let's get into it. I don't think that I would trust. Let me get the cast list here in front of me.
Yeah, get the cast list up. We're gonna be covering episode 3. I just wanted to get a general outline of just where Scott's head's at with everybody. Obviously rooting for his draft team, but there's a lot of interesting characters here to discuss. So I know that you said that you have a color coordinated Excel spreadsheet. So
I gotta keep track of the votes and stuff. But I do genuinely like the 4 people on my team, and I am actually rooting for them. I think that I would have gravitated to them regardless of if they were on my team. Someone else that has caught my attention is Paul. I know in the pregame we were a little bit skeptical about him arriving and really getting his teeth sunk into the game. I think that he's doing a pretty good job of creating the one-on-ones that we had discussed. So I have my eye on him as well. I would not trust Drew, not at all. I wouldn't trust Keaton either. HGC makes me laugh because HGC is always like not gonna do anything. They're like, this is what we're doing. He's like, well, I'm not doing that. So he's entertaining to me, but I wouldn't necessarily want to be like working with him in the game. Like if I was like, oh, you got a clue, did you find it? He's like, I'm not looking for any. I'm not running. I'm not looking for clues. So love him. Wouldn't want to be working with him. I think I was gonna say a lot of the girls stand out to me too. I know. Jumping right into this episode, they were talking about the speakeasies. I think that's the first inkling of something that's gonna last us the rest of the season.
Is that the speakeasies? When you said that, I said but I didn't really remember what that meant. Is that Taisha and Melissa? They were
I think that they said it's those 2. They're sharing a bed, and then Erica's in there with them.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if that's an actual thing. It was only like discussed right at the top of the episode there, but
yeah. But why would they have that if it wasn't something, you know? Are they trying to throw us off? I don't know. Just reading it.
But let's get into this episode here. We first get, the captain challenge. Actually, I had a question for you specifically, Scott, about these captains. Now, it's interesting that we've had two people, win captains early on, back to back. It's only been two of the 3 rounds, right? So Jake and Kennedy have now won captains twice. Obviously, the first one was the blind pick for Kennedy, but Jake's winning back to back, captains. How do you think about that? Like, is that something that you think is going to be detrimental to these players, or do you think they should be fine here? It seems like Kennedy has had her hands on a couple of these votes pretty tightly.
I think that Kennedy especially is someone that comes off as she's a player, and it's not something that I think that she necessarily would be able to hide. And I think that for her, kind of sandbagging and not trying so hard is not something that she necessarily would be able to get away with anyway. So she just doesn't seem like the type of person that is going to throw a challenge. And I think that she wants to be really locked into the votes each round, but it doesn't seem to really be biting her in the ass. Am I allowed to say swear? I assume yes.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Everybody's been asking me that. Yeah, loose, man.
I say it. I'm like, is that okay? But she seems like the person that she seems like she is capable of winning all these challenges, as she has proven, and it hasn't come back to haunt her just quite yet. But I think that that's kind of a middle tier game right now. She's basically been proving loyalty and pushing votes a little bit. So I think that we'll see what comes of Kennedy, but I don't think it's going to get her just quite yet. But I think her time is coming for people to start getting on her a bit. I think Jake's wins are a little bit more undercover. It wasn't until I was actually rewatching this episode that, again, looking back at my notes, that I realized that he was captain both last week and this week. And I also, something interesting about him winning captain this week, he made mention that he, what do you say, learned his lesson, or he was going to target someone, but then they didn't tell us who. Is he targeting Thomas because he picked him first? They didn't really tell us. He's like, I learned my lesson, and I'm going to make a move. And then, what's the move?
Picks Thomas.
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing?
I don't know. Yeah. Are they working together? I don't remember.
Yeah, so that's interesting. We never really got clarification on that. And I think that team won, so we never will. But so Jake and Zoe win the Scrabble, find the tiles, make a word kind of thing. And they pick teams, and then we get this challenge with, give people balloons. What did you think of these challenges? It was tough to see at the end for the balloons. It was getting pretty dark, and we didn't really get too much of what was going on with the Scrabble. What did you think of the challenge?
I had 2 favorite parts from both the challenges. The first favorite part was from the Scrabble one. Well, one favorite from both. The Scrabble one was whenever Thomas said that he can't spell, so he went to go for like the point one rather than the long word, and then he didn't spell the word right anyway. Quieter, I'm pretty confident, is not a word. But I'm sure that some of those answers were ridiculous.
So that wasn't a word, right? That wasn't a word? Because I was like, why are they spelling that out on the screen?
No, because I think that that's the joke. He's like, I'm going for the shorter words because I can't spell. And then he didn't spell it right. A little shade at Thomas's way. We don't like that for the Descendants. And then my favorite part of the balloon challenge was that the whole point of it was like you had to hold on to the balloons as long as you could, and then when you drop one, you're out. And then every single time someone dropped one of their balloons, Papa was like yelling at them, "Don't drop the balloons!" And it was like, Papa, that's the point. Like they're trying not to do that, but I understand that they didn't want them to like blow away in the dark. But it was just funny to me that if they were doing better at the challenge, they wouldn't have dropped it, and then he like immediately yells at them every single time. So those are my favorite 2 takeaways from the challenge.
Do you think Papa would have gotten even more mad if the person just dropped all the balloons?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I would assume yes. But I feel like if I was doing that and I dropped one, I would like rage, like throw them all. Maybe that's why he was saying it. I don't know. But that was my favorite part of the blue challenge. But I do think that seeing everyone's answers in the Scrabble would have been really interesting to see and no one really talked about throwing it or anything, but we heard like a couple glimpses of what people were trying to spell and what worked out. But I also missed that there was like the longest word and like the longest point one. So that was when on my rewatch, it made more sense what people were doing. But the balloon challenge, I thought that was a good one, even though it was a little bit hard to see just because of the nighttime scenes. I think that the targeting of the green team from specifically Melissa, I think that Melissa is someone that I've taken a big shift on my original opinion on. It's not that I dislike her. I just think that she, in her confessional, she comes off as very intense. And I think that that's how she comes across in a lot of these challenges and such as well. So I think that if I'm remembering, I feel like she's won a lot of the challenges. Yeah, she's won the last 2 weeks. So I think that she's able to sort of build rapport with these people, which is going to definitely need to come. She'll need that coming in the next future rounds, because I think that her intensity is something that people are already picking up on. And I think that she's going to be a target the next time that we're going to a vote.
Yeah, and it was mentioned by somebody in this episode, like at one point they can't get Melissa out, so get out Melissa's closest ally. I don't know if that was Chris, but that was just something that was mentioned.
Yeah, they're leaving us out to dry with some of these confessionals. Like, they're not really giving us the deeds.
Yeah, there's a couple holes in the story, but
yeah,
maybe the next episode will fill those holes.
Maybe they're it's all foreshadowing. I don't know.
But anyway, so before this challenge, the balloon challenge, the people that were, Melissa, Marvin, and Carson, those were the people that were actually giving the balloons to people. They got some powers. So we see some powers in the game. And what do you think? We have Marvin here now has Captain's Choice. I don't know if you're familiar with what these powers are, but I have like the what it does. If you don't know, he's able to.
I think that'd be really useful for your fans to just remind them what they all are.
We got
not me. I obviously remember.
It's on your spreadsheet, right? Yeah, so Marvin was able to get the Captain's Choice. He can overthrow a captain, but he's not going to be safe for the vote if it is what it was last year. Melissa's able to swap teams. She mentioned, we all know what that is. And Carson got a benched power. He can sit 2 people out of a captain's challenge. So, having now know what that, these powers are, what do you think of that? What do you think of is there any one of these 3 that you would particularly have wanted to choose if you were in the game?
Of the powers, for me, that's a tough one. I just like to have powers in general, so I would have taken any of them. I think that for me personally, I think based on my time spent in Ascendance, I think that switching teams would be something that is useful. I think that that's interesting that Melissa got that one too, because as mentioned, I think that she's someone that people will target, and potentially if someone wins captain, they can pick her and then she'll have this in her back pocket. So that would probably be the one that I would choose for myself. What was the first one?
Marvin has
overthrow. Yeah. I would pick the one that Melissa got. I also think that it's interesting, the 3 people that got the powers, because I think that those 3 are playing vastly different. They're taking different routes in the game. Very, very, very dynamic in which direction they're going. Like, again, Melissa's playing a little bit more intense, like in your face game. Marvin is trying to be really sneaky. We'll get to maybe not doing as well as maybe he hopes in a future power conversation that we'll have this episode. And Carson, I think Carson was there just for the good vibes, like promoting that kind of energy. And then I think that he had to start playing a little bit more, as we'll get to kind of the conversation about the vote later. But I just think that it's interesting that those 3 are the 3 that got it because of the contrast in games.
Yeah, 100%. And let's get into the strategy portion here. 2 teams, going to the elimination. And we have this twist here where Erica and Keaton are also going, but they're just safe. What did you think of that? Just like the, last 6 people draw rocks, and 2 people are going to vote and be safe.
Well, I think it's cool. I think that it's fortunate to get picked last and then get lucky. I think luck plays a huge portion in all of these games. So especially for Keaton, because I think Keaton would have been someone that would have balanced into conversations about getting voted off. And I think that Erica is the one that's more interesting in this particular, especially the strategy portion, because she obviously was very emotional about the decisions, about what was going on, because I think that where the names landed, it's landed on people that she didn't want to see go. And so being that she was just outright safe, I think if it were me, I would have pushed it I like to push the vote in a different direction if I don't like where it's going. Looking back at All Stars, but being that she was safe, yeah, you're welcome. Being that she was safe, I think that if I were her, I would have tried to push it a little bit harder to try to get the votes onto someone else, especially when, what was it, like only a 6-person majority to get all the votes. So I think that it was really interesting that her safety didn't cause her to push it a little bit more, but I think that might be kind of the player that Erica is, because I don't think that Erica is someone. I think that Erica is very much someone that can slither right to the end, like just kind of coast, and then still pull out a win because she seems very likable.
Yeah, and so kind of interesting, the names that came out real early. It seemed like Zoe was pushing for a Jodie vote, and then we kind of hear Hot Girl Chris's name come up a little bit, and then kind of Carson in the mix, and then lastly, like Chris, like kind of crazy how his name kind of came out of nowhere, right?
It did. I don't. Yeah, that one was confusing to me. One thing that were people really talking about Hot Girl Chris that much? Because from my recollection, it was a group conversation. And then Hot Girl Chris was like, "I have to go get my name out of people's mouths," and I was like, was anyone really talking about Hot Girl Chris that much? I feel like that was just like he just kept saying it, and I was thinking, did someone just throw that out there? Because I don't remember that being in the mix. And I know that they
do you think that could be a good strategy? Like throw your name out there and then defend your name?
No, not for me. I guess maybe it's different for everyone that's playing, but I don't see that as a strategy that I would adopt. But I don't know, to each his own. Carson, they said that they were pretty much just promoting his name so that he would play the power, which they didn't succeed at. What was the car train something?
all aboard the car hype train. Choo choo.
Mm-hmm. That. So I think that he came in. I know, but I just couldn't remember what it was. But I feel like he is someone that came in with that positive, like excited energy, and I think a big shift happened this episode when he was like, "What? Why me?" Like, so I think that I do think that he played it very well because he didn't go crazy. He sort of.
Did we ever get like clarification on why, like how people knew he had a power? What did he just reveal? I don't know how people knew that.
They mentioned someone, I don't remember, someone mentioned that they knew that the leaders got powers. But I would have to.
I'll have to go back and look.
Yeah, I know that someone mentioned that, so I'm assuming that that's. Word spreads fast in these games, dude. You know.
Yes. So if that's the case, then maybe people know about Melissa and Marvin's power.
No, probably just Carson. No, I'm just kidding. I'm assuming that they probably all do know.
It's interesting that Carson's was the only one that was brought up, even though Marvin was a captain that was eligible to be voted out, Yeah,
I was just about to look at that. True. I don't know. Marvin's playing a little shyster game, I think. He's very under the radar being sneaky. I think.
Yeah, let's get into that. You alluded to it earlier. The kind of Marvin sees a power, then talks to Kennedy about maybe going for the power, and then just kind of grabs it right in front of everybody.
I could feel the tangible energy coming through the screen of like, there it is. I just have to grab it, and then
kind of like in Survivor when they have these idols like at camp, and like, or during the chat, like a live challenge, and they're just like, grab it.
Well, no, I think what I was saying is like he
Like
could
maybe
have
he should have
played that
waited for
off. He
people
could
to
have
leave.
he could have played it off so much better, but he was just like, I feel like I could feel his like body like getting pulled to grab it, and then he was like, I just got to do it, and just was like, and Jolie was like, do I look at him? Do I acknowledge that I saw that? And more of it, I don't know. It was so uncomfortable for me to watch that because it could have been played off so better. Also, I didn't realize that he and maybe I should have, but I didn't realize that he and Kennedy were so close that he would have told her.
It
Is
might
that a
have been a
I
thing
should know
where
about?
Kennedy was just like right next to him in the moment.
And so he also, he's like, we're both looking at this, right? So now me, you,
He's like,
and
no.
Italy have a very tight three about this little power that we all know that I have.
So needless to say, he gets a half pendant. So he also needs to figure out who has the other half, which I don't think is out there yet. But kind of tough though, having a power there that can't do anything unless something else happens.
Unless you know the other person. I kind of wish that it was something that he had to give someone else, because then he could have really patched over that whole Jodalee debacle. But I also find that it a little bit interesting that Jodalee did catch him in the act, and maybe that Kennedy knows as well, because Jodalee's hands are in many pockets. I feel a lot of people talk to Kennedy about a lot of things, so I think that if he creates a good rapport and a good connection with these two people, if they choose to trust him or work with him, then it could really benefit him that they caught him, or they could utilize it to help a different friend. So I think that it could be a good thing, even though it would just come down to him getting a little bit lucky that those were the people that caught him.
Right. And so this vote ends up going down to basically Jodalee and Chris. Going into before, we go to vote, did you have a feeling either way that this was going to be a Chris vote or a Jodalee vote? Like, what were you thinking before we have this scene, this random scene before voting?
So I actually watched the episode a little late. And on my YouTube, I saw that you and Chris had a little interview pop up, so I already knew what happened. But
okay.
But the whole time I was watching it, I kept thinking, how does this end up on Chris? Like, it just seemed like it wasn't going that direction, and then last second, they like drew the things. Oh, that's
so
painful to watch.
Yeah, let me just. Basically, what happened at the end there was a group of 6 people. And Kennedy's like, here, give me these 2 different colored, wristbands. And whichever one you pick, Erica, will be the person that, we vote for. Some people don't actually do that. That was a part of that. But, it's an 8-4 vote on Chris.
It sucks for Erica too,
I thought
because
Chris was doing well.
I think that he was doing really well. I think that it's super fortunate as well for Erica that she picked the Chris one, so she probably even felt even worse about it. But it's painful to put yourself in that position, especially. I mean, I'm sure that Chris figured it out with future people joining as they came in to like after. Like the pre-jury house or wherever they ended up. I'm sure that he ended up figuring it out, but in that moment, he really didn't do anything wrong if it came down to just that draw. And that almost sucks worse than realizing a mistake that you've made in the game that you can adapt and correct and improve for the future. If it came down to literally just that, it's kind of just get luckier next time. Like, there's nothing really else. Yeah. But again, for the Descendants, I'm happy that it was Chris over Jodalee.
Really rocking with the draft team there, huh?
It all comes back to me in this moment. I was like, oh God, not Jodalee, the first draft pick.
So the scene after talking with Chris, it's even more like another layer on it where he says that he had a prior relationship or played a game with Kennedy. in which he voted Kennedy out of the game and kind of like didn't tell her. So there's this extra layer that I wonder if she kind of did. She did the switcheroo.
I was thinking the same thing whenever I was watching it, because she seems like the type that
she's like really been involved. Like,
oh yeah, votes. I was gonna mention that too. I think that there's a chance that she was just like, pick a hand, Erica, and like, then just did. Sorry, like, Chris.
Which, to be honest, if that happened, like, that's kind of awesome.
It's a baller move, yes. But I also believe in karma, and I feel like Chris is big on that too. So I feel like if that's what happened, she's got something coming.
So that being said, we see Chris leave. I drafted Chris in one of my drafts pretty highly, so it was unfortunate to see that. But he left with a positive, exit. So who do you think's in trouble? We kind of talked about like Melissa being, very out there, very intense. People came for her.
I do think that she has such a leadership quality about her that she, I think, has troops behind her. So as long as the right people are winning captain, I think that she can be okay. And then she has that power as well. So while I do feel as though she is in danger, I think that she has routes to get out of that. In danger for me, I know that Wesley mentioned something about maintaining a threat level, and I think it was Melissa kept saying that there was a plan. Wesley said there was a plan. Jake said there was a plan. Again, we never really knew what the plan was, so I don't know if those people are working together. I think Keaton, I'm nervous for Descendant Keaton.
He's all over the place.
Yeah. Someone that we haven't mentioned at all is Taisha. Am I saying that correctly? Right, Taisha?
Yeah.
She is doing. This is going to sound incorrect for what I'm trying to get across, but she's doing nothing but just gaining everything. I feel like she's just like has a vibe about her. People just tell her everything. I'm like looking at her. I'm like, why did they tell her that? Like she's just chilling and she's like. So I think that she's gonna keep doing well. I think that Drew is someone else that I worry about a bit, just because
we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about Drew with the pendant. Mm-hmm. That was kind of a fun scene. He was stuck in that fucking closet forever.
I think that was one of the best things that could have happened to him. He completely removed himself literally from everything, and I think he's the type of person that would have wanted to get in there a little bit more. So I think that removal for a round is something that will kind of take his name out of the picture a bit, which for someone as known as he seems to have been at the beginning of the game, I think that's something that would be really useful for his game. Kennedy, I'm nervous for her because of the challenge stuff, because even in the balloon one, she was right there at the end. I think that her challenge prowess is going to be crazy. Something that,
she's been very, very
killing it. Proud of her, but I think that it's going to start becoming more of a thing in the future.
Yeah, so Drew has this pendant of power. Drew also has a join a vote. It was a very interesting segment there with Drew in the closet for so long.
Can you remind the viewers at home what the pendant is?
Pendant of power is just basically this equivalent of a survivor idol. Idol. Yep. Did I need to remind the viewers, or is that something you were?
It's just something. Maybe they needed a refresher.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here, Scott. Anything that we haven't touched on that you want to talk about before we sign out here?
I think that as a production note, I think that they're doing a very good job of showing the course of what's going on. I think that anyone that's played an org knows the roller coaster of what it is going into a vote, and a lot of the orgs that I haven't played that many, but some of the ones that I've played, it always comes down to like the last 20 minutes. People won't really solidify anything. And then the last 20 minutes before tribal council or the vote or what have you is when everything happens. So watching that on these episodes it's basically watching in real time. I don't even know if they really need to edit that much because it's literally like you just follow the groups around and there's content there. So I think that they're doing a really good job of depicting the story of what's going on each vote, because it is, I can feel the nervous energy between all the people that are in conversation. So I think that they're doing a really great job of that. And I'm looking forward to seeing kind of where this goes, because as we know with Ascendance, it's never, this episode is not going to give us really anything into what's going to happen next episode, just because it's so dependent really until it's just like the merge. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be interesting, and we will have another episode here Thursday, 9:00, episode 5, where somebody might be eliminated. So definitely
be crazy if that happened. You never know with Ascendance.
I'm looking at these teasers on the Facebook, and it looks like Chris is in the mix. There's Ryan. Ryan's on the header for the next episode, so it's like, are they bringing somebody back?
I was just like, wait, who's Ryan? I was like, that's not on my cast list. Damn. But no, I haven't looked at it because I've been trying to avoid the spoilers, as I didn't do a good job this week. I'll have to look at it.
Yeah. So thank you, Scott, for joining me this evening. Appreciate you so much. And hopefully we'll get to talk again on one of these episodes down the road.